Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Robin Wilhoit. Thanks for joining us live on 10 at 2, streaming on WBIR+. During this half hour, we're going to tackle a lot. We're going to get into the news of the day, specifically the story of the day. We're going to dive into sports, and then we're going to give you your forecast. That all-important forecast. We'll be hearing from the team here at WBIR. On occasion, we'll bring in those newsmakers, but we want to launch into the forecast with meteorologist Cassie Nall, and thank you for being with us, taking time. I know you guys are busy.
It's only my second time sitting in this chair, and I just already bought the microphone, so I'll get used to my environment here.
It takes a moment, but
yeah.
we like the environment, except for the fact it is so cold in this podcast room.
It's chilly. We're both in short sleeves, but don't let that fool you at home. It is very, very chilly right now.
Yes, it is. So, hey, we may break out the parka before it's all said and done. But, hey, on that note, it's warm outside.
Yeah, it felt so nice earlier. We had full sunshine, just a light, cool breeze coming through, and it felt really, really nice. Now the clouds have kind of come back in a little bit.
Yeah.
And as we go through the rest of the day today, we're going to keep that cloud cover around, but we get to keep the mild temperatures too.
Okay, so the question is, how long will we get to keep these warmer temperatures? Because all good things must come to an end, and we know we're still in winter.
That's what I was about to say. We are still in meteorological winter until March 1st, but astronomical spring doesn't even begin until March 20th. So we've got a long way to go before we can say we are done with the cold spells as we move through the spring season.
Yeah, but as far as the immediate, we're going to enjoy it while it lasts. So, let's kind of dig into the day then.
Yes, so I've got the 7-day forecast pulled up for you to kind of give an idea. We do have highs still in the 60s again for the day tomorrow, maybe some low 70s on Thursday. It is going to be breezy tomorrow, and there's a chance for a few spotty showers, maybe a rumble of thunder. On Thursday, especially later, we'll have a round of possible rain in the morning, then maybe again in the evening, maybe some rumbles of thunder with that too. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are very much kind of still a question mark as far as how much rain we're going to see, how much coverage we'll have on that. But notice that we do see the temperatures dropping again.
Those 40s.
I know.
The highs of 40s make a return.
And look at Monday morning's low.
Oh, the 20s. I thank you for pointing that out, Not.
I'm just saying, we're going to, that's why we call this faux spring right now. Yeah. Then we're going back into second winter. Then we'll come back into the spring of deception, and then third winter, and then we'll finally get to our actual spring.
Okay. It's coming.
We still got some more ups and downs along the way, but for now, just enjoy the mild temperatures while we have them.
Patience. That's what we want.
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about what you will be bringing us tomorrow. It's what you bring every Wednesday, the weather recap. We're going to give you a preview of that, and you've got some really mind-blowing things that are happening around the country weather-wise.
Yes. So, I mean, if you're a science nerd, weather nerd like I am, you're going to enjoy the recap because every week I go through and I try to find all of the latest news in the world of earth science and then just the really cool events happening. Most of them are weather-related, but some are not, like the first one we're going to talk about. Kilauea volcano.
Kilauea.
Erupting in Hawaii again. That is video of episode 42. So that eruption began on Sunday morning and ended late Sunday evening. It lasted for just under 10 hours.
It has been pretty active in the recent time frame, hasn't it?
Yes. So we call this episode 42 of an eruption that began in December of 2024.
Okay.
So it's been going on for a little more than a year now. And every couple weeks, scientists are actually able to predict this pretty well within a couple days range of when these next eruptions are going to happen like this. Lately, we have had two different vents that the lava comes out of, the north and the south vent. And so when it erupts, it's erupting with fountains over 1,000 feet high, just spraying in two different directions like a fan. And it's really, really beautiful when it happens.
Okay. Something else that is beautiful if you veer more toward the cold.
Yes, from fire to ice, we're also covering a frozen Niagara Falls, or a mostly frozen Niagara Falls.
Stunning.
Absolutely beautiful going on here. Now, the falls don't ever completely freeze over because there's 20 million gallons of water coming over the edge there of down the river. But a good portion of it can freeze over, and it can even encase the moving water in ice, so it looks like it's completely frozen. Now, the last time this happened was back in about 2015, so this does not happen all the time.
That was going to be my question. Is this something that we would see every winter season? But no.
No, I mean, look at the difference right there. On the left-hand side, you can see more of that ice there. And, I mean, it's been a really cold winter for portions of the Midwest and up into the Northeast. And so Niagara Falls, no exception to that. You can see tons of ice has formed because of the very cold temperatures they've had for an extended period of time up in the Northeast.
Okay, I'm feeling that much colder now in this icebox of a podcast room and looking at that video. We're going to go from wind, fire, snow. This is happening out west. What's playing out there?
So while our weather has gotten a little bit warmer, the weather's gotten wilder out west. Now, on one hand, they really need to see that. I mean, this is a look at the weather alerts from around the country. It's very obvious where the active weather is right now. The purples and the lighter pinks that you see kind of from west of Denver back toward the Pacific coast, those are all winter weather alerts for heavy snow along with some very gusty winds. But what you see with the gold color and that darker pink color that extends out into the plains, those are wind alerts and fire alerts because these areas have not had enough precipitation through the winter season. And now they have a very high fire danger. When you combine that with the strong winds associated with that low pressure system, we've got the elevated fire danger out on the plains, and then now up to maybe 10 feet of snow in the Sierra Nevada mountains in California.
So what you're telling me is there's wild weather from one end to the other as far as the United States goes.
That's right, and I'll have all of that in the weather impact recap tomorrow evening, and I'll be back here on Thursday to tell you more about what's in that recap too.
All right, we'll look forward to it. Cassie, thank you so much. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we are talking about immigration, law enforcement, and religion here in East Tennessee, how ICE raids are impacting the Catholic community. That conversation with WBIR reporter Ellis Rold coming up after this.
We're in break. 2 minutes.
I wish I could get out of your camera shot because I'm like,
No, you're fine. No, that's fine. No,
Actually
that's
very
fine.
natural.
Honestly, we don't
Okay.
we don't mind it.
okay, you're
Actually
welcome.
Thank
very
you.
natural.
You're
It's
welcome.
That
a
worked
podcast.
wonderfully. This is actually working quite
Yeah,
nicely.
I'm planning on.
The next block's pre-recorded, so you don't have to fly out of here.
Oh,
So
okay.
you're
Okay.
actually
Okay, that is that.
amazing.
Cat.
Just
Thank
gotta be
you
ready.
You're welcome.
very, very
Yeah, I'll
much.
be back on Thursday.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining us for 10 at 2, streaming on WBIR Plus. We are previewing a story that you will see later today on WBIR's 10 News at 5 and 10 News at 6. The Catholic Diocese of Knoxville is actually speaking out about immigration enforcement in the Knoxville area. It's come out with an article in the East Tennessee Catholic titled, "Knoxville Catholic High School Parent Detained in ICE Enforcement Actions." 10 News reporter Ellis Rold is digging into this story for us today. Ellis, number one, thanks for being here on our second day of streaming at
Thanks
2
for
o'clock.
having me.
Well, we are so happy you're here because this is a story certainly that we talked about a lot at our morning meeting as we were talking about the stories that we were going to cover today. This one stood out. First off, let's talk about this article. What is it presenting? What is the story it is sharing?
Yeah, so the article essentially runs down kind of two cases within a few different parishes that the diocese wanted to bring to light. They wanted to talk about a father of a Knoxville Catholic high school student who was picked up by ICE when he was going to Home Depot. His daughter, the article says, spoke with him during a video call once he got into jail in Knox County on the 29th, January 29th. She says that immigration agents asked him to show his ID. He gave his driver's license and his current work permit. When he was asked for further documentation from those ICE agents, and then they asked if he would step out of the car so they could take his picture. And when he exited the vehicle, he was taken into custody.
So we are hearing that ICE is targeting criminals, people in this country, illegally criminals. Any indication that he had a criminal background?
Yeah, so we're still in the process of kind of trying to figure this out. You will notice if you read the article that everyone that spoke to the diocese for this publication did so anonymously. So we're still kind of trying to figure out. I spoke with the diocese communications contact this morning. We're still trying to kind of figure out more information about both of these families. The communications person is still waiting on an update from the family for us to kind of see where he's at in the process. It does say that he's working with his attorney to assess next steps. So there's still a few questions that we need to answer.
And there is another story in this story as well, another family story.
Yes. So if we go to the next page here, this is a story about a parishioner who spoke to the diocese, a parishioner of the Cathedral of the Most Sacred Heart of Jesus. She described her boyfriend and her boyfriend's brother being pulled over by ICE agents in December. According to her, they didn't give a reason for the stop. After they questioned the two men, they determined they had overstayed their visas, the article says, and they were immediately taken into custody and then eventually transferred to a federal detention center in Louisiana, which we are seeing in other cases. When people come into Knox County custody, a lot of times they do eventually go to Louisiana.
You mentioned you've been talking with a contact at the diocese. Did that person explain to you why they are coming forth and sharing these stories?
Yeah, so I think it sounds like the diocese is almost in a similar position as us, the media, right? When you have cases like this, when we are seeing ICE come into Knox County, or, you know, it's really what we want to do with any story is how can we include a real person in this story? And we've gotten lots of numbers, we've gotten lots of data, which we'll talk about, but when you watch a story, what makes you connect with it is seeing a real person in that story. And so it seems like that's what the diocese is wanting to do. And that was really their goal with putting this out was, you know, these are stories of real people within parishes, and they just wanted to share that.
You hit on something so important. That is what we are tasked with doing as journalists, is to give the facts, to share the information and talk to the people who are impacted in one way or the other. Let's quite frankly recognize that a number isn't necessarily going to make me connect. A person and their story will make me feel something or want to act or want to do something. So there is that element of telling a person's story as opposed to, in addition to, I should say, having those numbers as well.
Of course, yeah.
Let's talk about the church. You and I talked before we came together. They're not taking a stand on ICE immigration, are they?
No, not at all. And it's interesting, at the end of the article, let's see here so I can read it. The bishop actually, they included that Bishop Beckman wrote in a December 12th letter, "I remind all that Catholic teaching affirms the right of people to migrate when they cannot find security, livelihood, or life for their families. We also affirm the right of nations to regulate borders in a just manner. The two truths must never be placed in opposition. Justice and mercy must walk together," which I think is really thoughtfully put and kind of shows what angle they're coming at this from.
And this is not a first for the Catholic diocese to come forth sharing a message. They did so back in 2018 at a meat packing process raid. ICE raided this meat facility in Granger County and detained people there. I don't remember the exact numbers. Some were released, some were detained, some were, I believe, deported, but they did speak out at that time as well.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting point to make, because while we are seeing numbers rise in Trump's second term with ICE detainees. This is not the first time that the diocese is speaking out in this manner. So I think that's an important distinction.
Absolutely. Okay, let's deviate a bit because you have been digging into the immigration numbers as far as detainees in Knox County specifically.
Right.
Let's talk about last week. You came forth with a set of numbers from a researcher at the University of Tennessee. Let's debrief us on that again.
Sure. So I spoke with Megan Conley, who is a researcher and professor at UT. She studied immigration for years, and she has aggregated some data over the last several years. Really, the data she gave me goes back to 2018 of ICE detainees coming through the Knox County Jail. So when we look at the total detainees for 2025, and this was in my piece last week, total detainees 2025, 3,470. When you compare that, according to Conley's data, to total detainees from 2024, that total number was 821.
How did she get her numbers? Where did she get access that information?
Yeah, so she has developed a system, and she monitors people coming through the jail that is accessible to anyone online. So it's a very detailed process, and she's put a lot of time into it. And it essentially looks at publicly available data and sees when people are put on an immigration hold.
Now, you have taken this a step further, though. This request before you even spoke with Ms. Conley, you put a request into Knox County to get their numbers. Where does that stand?
Yes, so, and I have the big stack of data here. They gave us, and I'm still waiting for some clarification about what exactly these numbers include, because as we went into in the story last week, there's a couple different ways that someone can end up on an immigration hold, either through what's called the bed contract, or if you end up in jail on local criminal charges. And we broke all of that down. It's quite detailed and granular, but that was in my last piece. So from the data from the Knox County Sheriff's Office, KCSO, the data set that I have been given from them.
And this is for last year,
correct,
2025.
All of 2025, totals 964 people.
So 964 from Knox County compared to
3,470
from the UT researcher.
Correct. And like I said, I'm still waiting for KCSO to clarify, what is included in this 964.
So there's no way we can, at this point, compare apples to apples.
Correct. And we're hoping to kind of address that later in the week in another piece. But what is interesting about the data that they gave me is we can see how long someone was held in jail. So we can do some math and kind of figure out the average days held. We can also figure out, they include the birthplaces of the vast majority of these people. Some of them are misspelled, some of them are blank, some of them are cities rather than countries, but we're able to kind of get some major takeaways about where a lot of people were born who are being held as detainees. And there's also some really interesting countries on here that you might not necessarily expect, like China, Egypt. There's some that you wouldn't necessarily think of.
Does it have any crimes they are accused of? It's just basically the basic information.
Yeah, so it includes names. Their ID number has been redacted. Their booking, it just says booking, but I'm assuming that's what they were booked on. That has been redacted.
Yeah.
But we can see, which I was honestly pleasantly surprised about, we can see how long they were held. So we're still doing some math to kind of figure that out.
Last question. What has been the most challenging aspect of covering this story? Because you have been doing it for a while and will continue to do it for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I think there's a couple aspects. I think going through the data and figuring out what to ask for has been challenging. Understanding the different types of contracts, the different ways someone could be held. What does KCSO's contract with the federal government look like? I think that's all really challenging. And then again, just finding real people for stories, because that's what helps people connect.
Well, thank you, number one, for your hard work. Number two, for coming on and sharing the process and the direction of this story. We'll be tuning in, of course, tonight.
Thanks for having me.
At 5 and 6 Ellis. Thank you. Up next, we have an early look at the top stories you'll also see this afternoon on 10 News. And then after that, Wes Rucker coming in to talk all things sports. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thanks for tuning in to 10 at 2, streaming on WBIR Plus Live. We want to run down a few of the stories that you will see later today on 10 News at 5 and 6. Civil rights leader, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, has died at the age of 84. Jackson was there when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was shot and killed. In the decades that followed, Jackson ran for president twice. That was in the 1980s. He was a major voice on social issues in this country. We will hear from reverends here in East Tennessee about Jackson's legacy and look back on his visits to the Knoxville area. Also today, reports emerging of students on the UT campus dealing with out of control temperatures inside their dorm buildings. We're going to hear about their experiences and get the university's side of things and what's leading to these complaints and what's being done to solve it. And finally, a labor of love paying off. The Coal Creek Miners Museum, that's in Rocky Top, has told the story of the city from its days as Coal Creek, then Lake City, to finally now Rocky Top. Thanks to hard work from that community, they are trying to make that museum better than ever before. We will hear how coming up a little later today on 10 News. And with that, we're going to segue to Wes Rucker. 10 at 3 coming up in just a few minutes. And you always have like tons of stuff to talk about.
Always.
What are we talking about today?
We're talking about a lot of stuff. The Lady Vol softball team is now unanimous number one after that huge week they had down there, or a couple weeks, I guess, whatever you want to call it. There are a couple tournaments down there in Florida, and Lady Vol softball, or basketball, I should say, has a game today, makeup game, Ole Miss from the weather. You know, they had to kind of squeeze that one in. They're doing that this week. And then there's a big baseball game today, too. It starts right as soon as the show ends, unfortunately. They start at 6 later in the year, the midweeks. They start at 4 when it's a little cooler outside, or supposed to be. So, and it's unfortunate because today's Blaine Brown Day. He's had 3 home runs over the weekend. The big-time transfer Tennessee got in, son of former running back for the Titans, Chris Brown. He had 3 homers over the weekend, and he's starting at pitcher today. So it's the return of the two-way players.
What are you thinking of the Elander era?
I think it's exciting. You know, I think it's, you know, obviously Tony Vitello's always takes up a lot of oxygen in any room that he's in, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that that's his personality, right? That's just who he is. But he's gone now with the Giants, and of course, making news yesterday, talking about all that stuff. I guess we can talk about that in a minute. But Elander just kind of goes about his business. He and Tony Vitello have a lot of similar thoughts on baseball. Personality-wise, they've always been very different, right? Fire and ice, and I think he brought in, I think one thing that told you really quickly about him as a coach and what people think of Josh Elander is that the man who was the interim head coach at Florida at the time, comes to join Elander's staff as his top assistant. So that tells you people know about Josh Elander too. Tony Vitello was not the only, young rising star really on that staff.
Speaking of Tony Vitello, you mentioned this. He made a little news yesterday talking to the media in San Francisco. What did you make of that? For people who may not have seen it, recap.
I think it was funny because some people over there have asked me about some of that stuff, and I've just kind of said, "Welcome to the experience," right? And it's Tony Vitello, as good as really anybody that I've ever covered in this way. You will go into a press conference thinking you're going to ask about this or that, and he just clearly wants to talk about something else. He does this from time to time where
he'll go in that direction.
It's just he will tell you what he wants to talk about. Sometimes he's specific, sometimes he's not, but he wants something out there and he comes out and says it. And I think he very clearly did not like the way that was handled when he left. He thought that he still had not made up his mind yet when there were reports coming out that he had taken the job. He said it was up to 4 days before he actually accepted the job, and that it may have sort of altered history. It may have pushed him in different directions. And I think that's possible. I think there's also an element to that I think Tony Vitello didn't like something that was leaked over there, and he's just sort of letting everyone who covers that team know, by the way, if you do this, I am going to look for you. I do want to know. There are things, he says this all the time, he's very Italian. He cares about what he cares about, and he cares about it a lot, and he will not forget.
And he put that warning out. All right. Wes Rucker, we always appreciate you. We'll see you in just a few minutes on 10 at 3, and that is going to do it for us. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are going to have plenty more coverage throughout the day on 10 News. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 2 o'clock.